For better or for worse, add-ons have been an institution in World of Warcraft now for as long as I can remember. And this aspect of the game, especially as a new player, can be quite overwhelming. So I thought it'd be helpful to make a video about what add-ons I think are absolutely necessary. And from there, you can kind of branch out and determine what else you might need to help support your gameplay. I personally am someone who wants to use as few add-ons as possible. I don't like my UI being super cluttered. I just don't like too much going on in the background, slowing things down. So I thought to myself, if I could only have 10 add-ons, which ones would I choose and why? So today, here are my top 10 add-ons for any new player and even existing players. These are probably going to be high priority for you. Now, the first add-on I have to recommend if you're looking to do endgame or really even instance content in any capacity in World of Warcraft, and with that being a major part of it, you're probably going to, is DBM or Deadly Boss mods. This add-on is like your raiding and dungeon guardian angel looking over you and just giving you some warnings for what's to come. This add-on gives you raid warnings, icons, and messaging that lets you know what might be coming in the boss fight, and specifically as your role, what you might need to do next. And with how difficult some of the content gets in World of Warcraft at endgame, it's definitely almost necessary these days, especially as a new player. You're gonna want to utilize all the resources you have to make sure you succeed with whatever you're trying to do, and DBM will be a massive help to you, especially if you're just trying to learn how to play your role a little bit, DPS, tanking, healing. DBM specifically gives warnings and notices based upon what role you're playing. So for instance, if a boss or an enemy is casting something that needs to be interrupted, but you're a healer and that's not really your job, you won't be given that notice versus the DPS and tanks might be. Or let's say there's a massive amount of damage about to come out from a boss. That more relates to the tanks and healers because they need to be able to compensate for that. And the alerts you get, the way you want this add-on to look, the bars and notices and timers, this is all customizable, so you can really make it look how you want and be as maximal or minimal as you want. And I think as a new player, it's really important to learn how things are actually done later on, so getting a leg up on this will be really useful down the road. Now, the next add-on I have to recommend, and it's kind of a goofy one, but I promise you'll be glad you have it, especially early on, is GTFO. And no, there's no hidden or clever meanings. It means exactly what you think it does. GTFO. While DBM is going to inform you of what you should do, it's not going to really real time tell you if you're messing up. And with things being so hectic and chaotic, especially at endgame, it can be hard to tell sometimes if you're doing something as simple as standing in the bad puddle. You're just scared. But I can't tell you as a player 15 years, even now, how many times this add-on has saved my life, because I'm just not paying attention to the feet of my character and understanding that I'm standing in something bad. And sometimes there's just not a good amount of contrast between the ability that's sitting on the ground and what the ground actually looks like. If it's a green kind of druidy looking ability and you're on a grassy area, you might not even know you're standing in something until you get this warning, look really closely, and you're like, oh yeah. So just download it. I promise you'll be thankful you did. Now, another add-on that seems small, but is actually really, really helpful, and it's kind of surprising it's not something that's been a little more integrated into the actual game itself, is Omni CC. And what Omni CC does is it adds text to items, spells, and abilities that are on cooldown to indicate when they're going to be back up. You'll see this on anything from trinkets with use and cooldown to abilities and spells on your hotbars. And this is one that I think we forget how useful it is because we kind of just assume it's functionality built into the game because we downloaded the add-on a decade ago and never got rid of it. But trust me when I say seeing those actual text numbers on abilities and items that you're using with cooldowns, especially important cooldowns, you're going to be thankful you have it. Up next, another major one is weak auras, and this is where we kind of get into the weeds. This can be a little bit complex, but I promise it's not as complex as it seems. You do it once, you'll know how to do it forever. What weak auras does is it really takes the important information off your action bars and puts it in a spot where you're more likely to see it just looking at your character. The reality is when you're looking at your screen, you're more or less looking at your character or what's in front of it, which leaves your action bars a little bit more out of your vision. And what weak auras generally aim to do is take the important information off those action bars, like your abilities and cooldowns, and put them closer to your field of view. While you might have a ton of other things on your action bar that aren't actually like vital to combat, this just takes all the most important information and makes it much more available. A lot of people like to use weak auras in conjunction with DBM to help them understand what's going on in a fight and really what they might need to do at a moment's notice. But especially if you're a new player, I would say don't worry about that so much. I would say work on getting a weak aura that looks good for you, that you can use for your character and your abilities, and really learn how to operate off of that. I promise you'll be so much more efficient if you use your time to look at the weak aura versus down at the actual action bars, because it's just so much more efficient and built to be just overall more compact and efficient. And up next we have Tom Tom. And this is another one that seems kind of dumb and like, why would I reuse that? But I promise you, you're going to use it more than you think. The main focus of this add-on is to put coordinates on a zone and really make it more of a grid so that you can find things more specifically. Like if you're looking at a guide for something, more than likely it's going to give you the TomTom coordinates to put in so that you can get there more efficiently. And sometimes it'll even give you the command, which you can copy and paste into the text bar of the game, and it'll give you an arrow telling you how to get there. And trust me, there are some things in this game that are very well hidden and some puzzles that are hard to solve, and you'll be glad you have this. this. And this one is just so popular that a lot of players use it to just communicate where things are to each other. So if you want to be able to give and receive that assistance with location, TomTom is a must-have. And the next one might be a little controversial, especially recommending it for new players, but I just think it's such an integrated part of the game, for better or for worse, that you should probably get it early on. And that is a damage meter of any kind. I personally use the details add-on. I think it just is a little bit more detailed, but yeah, this add-on is exactly what it says it is. It is just a damage meter. It's going to let you know how much damage you've done, what your DPS is, and you're going to find out that people care how much damage you do. But early on, what I say is don't worry about what anyone thinks about your damage, and you can actually use it to improve yourself. In a perfect world, I think damage meters would be viewable by only ourselves and not shared to everyone else, so they can only be used for self-improvement. That's not the reality of the situation. However, you can still use it to that effect. So you could run over to the target dummies and just practice playing your class. And if you see the numbers going higher, that means you're doing something right. Though damage meters get a bad reputation, I think pretty deservedly so, they don't have to be completely negative. I think there's a lot of room for self-improvement when it comes to damage meters, and I don't think enough people look at it like that. After all, how are you going to know if you're getting better if you don't have some numbers to compare and contrast to? So damage meter, definitely worth picking up pretty early on. And now one that's extremely simple but will boost your efficiency and really help you with your forgetfulness is Scrap Junk Seller. Basically, every time you go to a vendor where you can sell anything, it's going to automatically sell your gray or worthless items to the vendor without you having to click anything. And you'll quickly learn one of the most valuable things in this game is bag space. So if it's being filled up with junk you don't need and you don't have this add-on, it gets pretty frustrating. So instead of ever having to think about it, Scrap does it for you and just automatically sells the stuff you're not going to want to keep your bags much more spacious. World Quest Tracker is another one of those add-ons where you kind of forget you have it at all and just think this is how the game UI works when it comes to World Quest, but then you get rid of it one day and realize, wow, it would be so much worse without this. Now, you probably won't be dealing with World Quest too much until max level, but if I'm going to recommend add-ons, for your entire World of Warcraft experience, I think I would be doing you a disservice to not recommend you this one. World quests are pretty much just open area quests happening, of course, out in the world, where you're given a certain reward and reputation for completing it. Now, what you normally see without this is just a big circular quest marker on the map that doesn't really tell you anything at all. However, with this add-on, you know everything you're going to do, everything you're going to receive, the reputation, everything that's associated with this world quest, and that's amazing. Like I say, it's just kind of weird this isn't how the interface of the game normally is because it's just so much better, but I guess Blizzard has just kind of left it up to these guys at this point. So definitely get World Quest Tracker. Plater nameplates is also a super useful add-on, which makes the UI just a little bit more readable. The built-in Blizzard nameplates of both enemies and allies are not very good, especially when it comes to the health bars. They can be a little thin, a little dark, maybe a little hard to read, but Plater nameplates takes care of all of that. With this add-on, you can pretty much make them look however you want them to be. You can make them much darker, lighter, wider, skinny, fat, like whatever you want to do. You can change the color. You can make it so that the highlight looks different. You can give the nameplates an actual texture. You can make them stack instead of just kind of layering on top of each other. Not only that, but you can actually take people's profiles that you made. Maybe you've seen someone online playing World of Warcraft and you really like their Plater profile. You can just take that and download it and import it the same way you would a WeakAura. And then from there, if you want to change minor things here and there from their profile, you can do so and then just save it. This is just another add-on where customization is the main feature, and in World of Warcraft, making the UI look however you want it to look is a majorly important thing. Not only do you want it to be effective and help you play better, but you also just want to like the look of the game you're staring at all day. And up last, but certainly not least, we have Rare Scanner, which is going to kind of serve two functions. One being finding the rare and elite rare mobs that are spawning all throughout the zone you're in, as well as notifying you whenever there's a treasure that populates within your vicinity, letting you know where to find it and often how to open it. If you find you're getting too many notifications from this add-on, you can manipulate what you want to get add-ons for and what you don't. But with how valuable rare and treasure farming really is endgame and how fun it is early on, I would say this add-on is absolutely worth it. It can be pretty hard to find rares out and about. Sometimes they look pretty similar to just the mobs around them, so without this add-on, you might never find it. Now, of course, there are a ton of other helpful and amazing add-ons out there. Like I said, if I had to be as minimal as possible, which I like to be, and have only 10 add-ons, these are the ones I would choose. And a lot of these serve both early game and end game functionality. So the earlier you get into these and get familiar with using them, the more success you're going to find early on in end game. As I said, for better or for worse, add-ons are a major institution when it comes to World of Warcraft, and they're definitely not going away anytime soon. And while these aren't completely necessary, I say they're going to be a major benefit to your journey in World of Warcraft and are definitely worth your time looking into. But guys, let me know down below, are there any that you think should have been in this top 10 that are a little more important than the ones I mentioned? And if you had to play with only 10 or let's say even 5 add-ons, what would be the ones you'd make sure to have? I appreciate you guys tuning in. My name is Vizian, and until next time, peace.